Good morning. What a beautiful day here in Wisconsin. I'm Matt and this is Frey's on the Side. Today we're going to spend a little time installing a 12 volt splice kit. It goes on the back of the factory plug and allows you to put in a secondary 12 volt system. In our case, I'm going to be putting in a USB, like a dual port USB on top of the dash to shorten my cords up. So stay tuned. So first thing, to get started, we got to take off this vector bar, which is pretty simple. 3 screws, pull that off. And then we got to take this bottom shroud off, the diffusers, pop the plug out, and actually ultimately pull this top plastic dash piece off to access ultimately this 12 volt power splice. So it's going to splice in the back of that using these 2 connection pieces. And then again, it gives us a place to land 2 wires and then ultimately relocate this plug. I'm not entirely sure where I'm going to put it. I'm thinking actually over on this side, putting it vertically, but I'm going to look once I pull it open to see if that's going to be the best location to land this. So we're going to start pulling this thing, pulling the vector bar off. All right, so I just put a little extension on this to make it easier, but just a simple 7 mil, a little ratchet. There's a screw. Now this applies to if you don't have a vector bar as well. There's a little screw in the center that holds the top of the dash together. So you pull this screw out, and the vector bar is free. Super simple. And I tell you what, these things are awesome. Highly worth the investment. I'm going to take this out. We'll start working on the dash. Okay, the next step is to remove these air outlets or diffusers. You turn that and then it comes out. All right, so this is one of the diffusers. I just want to spend a little bit more time on this because it's actually pretty simple. So there's a hole in the top of the diffuser that you're matching with the shroud, right? That allows you to stick the screwdriver through, right? So it really doesn't have to be a screwdriver, anything that's really somewhat small. And all you're doing is pressing down like this, and that's relieving this little clip. So you're basically do this, you press down, and that's enough for you to rotate it counterclockwise. And that allows you to pull these diffusers out. So it's actually pretty simple. So it's a pretty nice little design. Okay, step out, my lady. Whoa! Okay, so let's see the next step. So I've got all these diffusers out. The next one of the pretty simple steps is just popping this bottom steering wheel piece out, and there's little clips, there we go, that holds that in place. Okay, so again, in my scenario, I think probably with a lot of you, you do mods, continue to do mods, you run into different items that I got to disconnect. So in my case, I've got a red arc for my trailer, a little red arc dial I put in there. So there's a little plug that I've got to unhook. So take the shroud off. The next piece is to pop out this window controller. It looks like they didn't give me much harness, but okay, so that popped off. So all I did was apply pressure to this back plug, and then it popped right off. Okay, so that's disconnected. All right, what's next? The next piece is there's a screw right here. There's two screws, one on either side of the steering column, so 3 in total, I believe, that need to be removed. Okay, so 3 screws are removed. I believe that's all of them. I've never pulled these off before, but pretty simple. So just good firm pull and your cluster comes off. Cool. Okay, so this dash is off, and looking at it, I think I'll be able to put the plug right here, and that in theory lines up with basically sitting in somewhere in here, so it'll allow me to run the wires below, and then it'll sit in a nice spot, and then ultimately that sits in a really good location on the dash. So that's what I'm going to go with. I'm going to drill this hole out and then start wiring everything up. Okay, so I drilled, if you can see, it's actually right, ends up being really close to this retainer clip. So I'm gambling a little bit, but the reality is that I just got to cut some of these little pieces off the back, clean this up. That should be a good place for that port. The next piece is to pull this back. I think that's the firm but fair. Yep, there you go, pops right off. There's a little clip on the back of this that you work this out. And then it's simple as a plug and play. Yeah, basically I'll feed it under and through this spot over here, and then that'll give me access. So if I do want to switch out the accessory at some time, I can do so. So let's pull this wire through. And I can kind of work with it on this side. Okay, so then this piece is ready to get popped back in right away. Alright, so now that this is fed through, I can wire this wherever. I'll basically take the wire here, splice into this, route this wire up to the top of the dash, and where I have the 12-volt plug, and then basically connect everything out, probably test it first, and then put it all back together, and I should be good to go. Okay, so I basically got everything put back together, ran my wires through the top here, down, and connected to the underneath the glove box, so I can always access that later, disconnect it or reconnect it to somewhere different. Went together really well. I did put this too close back, or too far back, so I actually had to do a little dremeling on the back piece. So just note that this plug probably is best to sit back farther. So I'm going to install the vector bar, probably move a couple things around, and start it up and see how everything works. Well, there you have it. Actually was a pretty easy install. I'd say maybe a handful of hours to run everything through, put everything off. It came out really, really well. and I'm really excited to use it just because it'll be nice to get some short wires to plug in my devices up front here and keep everything kind of up top on the dash instead of having wires drug up across the face of everything here. So again, really excited about the install and getting to use it. I hope you guys enjoyed watching it. Thanks for joining.